I hit the button, the stream should be live.
Yay.
Yay.
Oh, everyone's so excited today, I can tell.
Still recovering from daylight savings time because you guys know how much I love daylight savings.
Mm-hmm. Me too. It still feels like 11 a.m. I don't know, but it's 3. Messes with me more than it should.
It messes with raid time. I look outside like, oh, it's still light outside. Raid's not coming up yet. Oh, wait, never mind. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we had someone at work call in for a meeting an hour early. It was fun.
I thought that, now that everything is automatic, it would be easier, but it's not. So, I mean, it is nice that it's not dark by 5 p.m. anymore.
Yeah, they should just kill it right now.
Yeah. It is in fact dead in the chat, or my Twitch is fucked up.
Looks dead to me too.
Looks dead to me. Just like us.
Rip.
The notification just went out though, at least for me.
Oh yeah, I just got it now too. Only took 2.5 minutes.
Not bad. It's been worse.
I've definitely heard of like 12-hour delays on it.
The emails are bad.
My computer is sounding like a jet engine and I'm doing nothing but sitting in Warcraft.
I think we need one of those alien comics with the 2 aliens about daylight savings time. I would love to see how that one would go.
Mm. I'm assuming you're talking about the strange planet.
I don't know what it's actually called.
The blue dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Some warm chicken water.
Mm-hmm.
Or bird water, rather.
Yes. That's the best.
They're too good.
I don't have many people on Instagram, but
I like
I got
today's.
that guy. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I should go. Do they only post on Instagram?
It's on Twitter too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I will share it just on stream so people can see it.
Mm.
In case you're wondering which alien comic I was talking about.
Yes. Oh my god, this one was great.
One usually does.
My trick is I just never pick up the phone, so I pretty much never get those calls.
If it's not on my caller ID, I don't answer it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only people that ever call me are my parents, which isn't and telemarketers. Or my bank occasionally, but they also email me, so I only respond to their...
Yeah. I'm like, if it's a doctor's office, they'll leave a message. If it's literally anybody important, they'll leave a message.
I don't check those either.
My phone, like, leave a message responses. I'm not going to email me, please.
I posted the link and
Hey, we have people here.
yeah.
Hey, it's Masky. And
Oh,
Kelby,
he's
too.
trying to troll.
It's not a dog picture, though, so I don't know what he's doing here.
Hello there, Klebby. That sounds real creepy.
I tried to convince Kelby to come on, but apparently he's too in some sort of heroic raid.
Mm. Fancy pants over there.
Ew.
Doing heroic raids on Saturday.
Someone called the overtime police. I'm sorry, the overtime Stasi for EU.
Oh, it's not with his guild. That just makes you
That
a
makes it
cheater
worse.
now. Mm-hmm.
See, Kelby, you tried to defend yourself, but you know that the answer is you should instead be watching Hero Academia.
It's a boost run. Hear what's wrong with the world, Klebby?
Harsh. Alright, we got some people in here now. We got a few topics here today. Of course, we're going to do our log review, which we'll end up doing here first. And then we'll talk about some of the fun stuff with the patch, such as talents and Loas, Sims in general, and whatever else we can think of to rant about. The usual. So today we will start off with our log review. This time we had a total of 2 people enter to have their log reviewed. Only one was Rhett. One of them was Prot for some reason, so. Just a reminder that when you enter those giveaways, there is a title on them about which spec it is, such as Rhett, Prot, or Holy, so if it's not the spec you're playing, you're not gonna get picked.
Should probably figure out a way to drum up more interest because people are linking logs all the time.
Yeah, we do get pretty frequent in the FAQ channel, or not in the just the regular. No, people want help
Questions
looking at
channel.
log.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of talk about people wanting help in there, but not a lot of them that enter in the giveaways. So, our log today is for Mythic King Rastakhan.
Or some of us like to call him Rastamon.
Mm-hmm.
Or as known this week, the lag boss of death and destruction. And in case you have not used a WoW analyzer recently, or did not watch our last Ret stream, you might be confused at what you're looking at, but this is the new WoW analyzer. It is now live. It's the same link as always, just wowanalyzer.com. But it had a bit of a redesign here, and as well as some new features added. But we'll talk about those as we go over the log. And as always, you can always watch this video if you want to reference back. And if you want a more in-depth guide of how to do things, there is a pinned video in the Rhett Questions channel you can check out, where I cover a lot of this stuff. Probably all of it, really, unless I forgot something, which is always possible, though. Alright, so from start off here, we're on the checklist page. It gives you a little bit of a checklist here if you want to look at. Usually the first things that we check out is like be well prepared. Like items enchanted, high quality enchants, pre-potion, second potion, flask, food, high quality food. That looks all good. Sometimes though this is a little bit inaccurate for whatever reason, so it's always good to check the log. So if you want to go to the log itself, if you already have it open, you can go there. Or if you scroll down, there's a link here. And there's also other places that will bring you to it, which I'll go over later. But we got the log here. We'll just go to the buffs. We will translate because I don't read German. So we see here we got 2 potions, so that was good. If we scroll down with the raid buffs, we got well fed, we got a flask. So all good there. So
I believe sometimes it just doesn't register that you use 2 potions, but you can just look at the or you can look on that little bar and see that the buff is up at the beginning and the end.
yeah. It's usually the pre-potion that gets messed up.
Yep.
But very easy to check. Alright. It also gives you some minor suggestions down here, or major, like average or major suggestions. If you want to see some more minor stuff, you can click on this little box, and it will show you some more stuff. But we're going to cover that from the stats page. So this is the new stats page. This takes the place of the old stats page. This also covers like holy power and ability usage if you scroll down. So it's all on this one page here now. And this is also another location where you can get to the log itself. There's these little stats here with a little graph. If you click on these graphs, it will bring you to the log. But we're going to focus on our timeline here, because one of the things we do is we go over the opener, and the best way to see that is on the timeline. Alright, so the timeline is different now. On the old analyzer, it was all on its own separate rails. Now, your abilities used are on a single rail, or single line, or track, whatever terminology you want to use, it's okay. It's all right there in one line. And below it, it has your ability cooldowns. A couple things you'll also notice here is that beneath, we see like a potion here. Also, a note, for some reason, this displays intellect, but it's not. I don't know why it does that. It's a known bug that... So, they'll work on that at some point. But any off GCD abilities will pop up on here, with a little arrow inserting when they were used. Now on top of the timeline, you'll see buffs, like how long Crusade was active, how long Imperium Power was active. So you can see when those buffs occur. This also happens for things such as Divine Purpose. When Bloodlust is used, Bloodlust will show up. If you're using Inquisition, Inquisition will show up there as well. If for whatever reason you decided to use Fires of Justice, that will also show up. But some of the more rotational affecting buffs will show up there. Don't want it to be overloaded, but wanted to have some good information, so we added those. So the first thing that we can see here is that he built to 5 and used his trinket before Crusade. So as far as the opener goes, that's definitely a little bit of a rough start there.
That might just be a macro, right?
Yeah, it's all...
Yeah, that could easily be a macro, since Crusade's on the GCD with the trinket. If you start mashing it as soon as your Crusader state goes off, the trinket will go off before the wings does, and that's usually what it looks like.
Yeah, that's usually what the case is. And also, they made the choice to build to 5, which if you want to build to 5, you can. It's not superior to a normal opener. It's not necessarily inferior either. But if you can build to 3, going either Blade Judge or Judge Blade and then go into Crusade, and it lets you get into your Crusade a little bit faster there. And by getting into Crusade a little bit faster, you also have more time in your potion. It also removes the delay on certain abilities, such as Wake. Sometimes those few extra seconds that Wake gets delayed, that could have been a potential another Wake cast. So, not the most efficient opener, but it is one that does work. But it does not feel good. Yeah, so you built to 5. You used Divine Storms because it's Mythic Rosticon at the very start. You're fighting Roka and 2 little minions there, so there's 3 adds. So he's cleaving away. So he builds his stacks. He gets some more holy power, gets some more stacks. Wake gets his 10 stacks. Now this is where on his blade here, this is where he should have used his trinket. So the trinket usage should have fell in line here after he already had 10 stacks of Crusade. And if you want to be really picky about when you use it, you could also potentially delay it for your first Holy Power spender. But the important thing with trinkets in Crusade is you want to make sure that you're either using them at maximum stacks of Crusade, or you want to make sure that the duration of the trinket, which in this case is 20 seconds, matches the remaining duration of your Crusade. So
now, does he just have the one on?
Yeah, he's only using a single on-use trinket.
Because it gets
he's
a
got
little
a butcher's
sketchy when you
block
have
for the
2.
other.
So it's a good disclaimer to put out there, I guess. This applies if you just have one on use like this.
Yep, so that is the opener. So pretty close there. Again, for resources of what to check for opener, if you go to the Ret FAQ, our guides are linked at the bottom there, and they all have a section on openers that you can look at. Now, a couple other things that we didn't go over first, like we mentioned, he was only using a single on-use trinket here, so we'll go to his character page. So this is the gear that he had at the time, and his talent setup. So as far as Azurite gear, he's running the helmet from Jadefire, he's running the shoulders from Grong, and he's running the chest from Champions. It's a pretty common setup and a really good setup. So no complaints there. For the traits he picked the appropriate traits on those pieces, so again, that's good. He did choose to run with Righteous Verdict, which on Rosticon might be questionable. Because on Rosticon there is a lot of cleave, especially at the start of the fight, where you have like a close to nearly like a full minute there of just AoE. And then later on in the fight as well, when those ads are back, if you're up top, there is more AoE as well. And it is enough AoE to push the overall DPS in favor of Zeal slightly. It's not a huge difference, but it's something you can consider. And if we go to the statistics page here, we have our stat here for Righteous Verdict, and we can see here that the total damage was 2.88%, and the buffed cast was 74. So for the total damage on Righteous Verdict and AoE, it definitely, for it to be worthwhile using in terms of pure DPS, it would have to fall to about 3.4 to 3.5% range. At that point, that's when Zeal kind of takes over. But there's still times where you might not take Zeal anyways. If priority damage is very important, you might continue to take that talent to make sure you're doing enough priority damage. But in this case, it is a fight that they've killed multiple times. It's on farm. So Zeal wouldn't be a horrible choice.
It's like so small at this point because you're divine storming even on priority targets now, so
Exile isn't that far behind, even when you're not looking at an excessive AoE.
Yeah. So one other thing we notice here is that his neck was only 407. I went and I checked the armory as well. His neck is still 407, which means he has not done the quest to get the free 10 item levels for your neck. That did come out with patch 8.1.5. If you start that chain, it's only 3 quests. It's very short. It takes like 10 minutes or even less. And you get 10 item levels free for your neck, so definitely make sure to do that. You're missing a little bit of some free damage there. Not much, but a little bit. Every little bit helps. And one thing that we also noticed here from his character page is that he was using haste enchants on his rings, haste on his weapon, also using a haste gem in his weapon. And what that looks like to us is that he's probably just gemming and enchanting haste just automatically. He's not actually simming it. Now, we don't recommend that you go and change your gems and enchants. It's usually a small difference, so it's not really worth doing. But if you are replacing a piece of gear that can be gemmed or enchanted, you should definitely just go ahead and sim it using raid bots. So for example, we took his character here, minus the weapon, because he has a new weapon now, so the weapon's different. But we put it in raid bot's top gear to see what would happen, like what sort of gems and enchants I would actually recommend. Also talents as well, but we'll talk about talents later. And you can see here, it actually recommend for his rings would be mastery instead of haste. And his weapon would be deadly navigation, which is crit, instead of quick navigation, which was haste. You can also ignore the Azurite. It said to run Avenger's Might on shoulders and Light Decree on chest, but that literally does not matter because he has Light Decree on his shoulders and Avenger's Might on his chest, so it just swapped them, so that's fine. You don't have to do that.
And when the item level is the same, the numbers and the buffs are the same too, so you don't have to worry about it's trying to optimize that either.
Yeah.
did it label it as a side grade or?
I didn't use high precision, so it fell out of the range, but it would have been the same.
It's probably just sim variance between the two.
Yeah, because it's only 6,000 iterations, so there's a lot of variance there. The alternative was letting the sim run for a long time. I didn't feel like waiting for it, so.
That's fair. It's just interesting that it does that sometimes, which is why you should always just like check the numbers.
Yeah, so when you're running your sim, you scroll down here and you choose your enchants, you choose your rings, and you choose your gems. You can choose strength too, of course. But Gale Force striking isn't good, you can ignore that. But as far as rings and gems, you can select them all there. There's a little button here for replace existing gems, which again, if you do that, that does increase the iterations a lot. Now it's not going to increase them in this case because when you sim the character from the armory, it gets a little bit funky and it doesn't recognize that there's enchants there already. But it'll really massively increase your iterations, so you should not have that checked. You should leave it unchecked in most cases. Unless you really have a lot of gold to burn and you have nothing better to do.
That's an extreme case of boredom there.
Yeah.
And you could always just give the gold to us, right? I mean, that works too.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, so as far as gear and sims goes, that's what we got there. So the only possibly odd choice might have been Righteous Verdict, but again, not a huge deal. Azurite was good. Other things were fine. The enchants and gems were a bit weird. Just, again, you can sim it. It's pretty easy, so definitely make use of that. So we'll go back to the stats page here. So a couple other things that we see here is that judgments consumed was at 97.44%, which is pretty good. There's a number of reasons on this fight why a judgment might not be consumed. If you use it on one of the ads and that ad dies before you get a spender, that could be one reason. Or if you use Judgment on Rosticon before the phase transition and you get stunned, it'll fall off in that period of time. That's another reason why a Judgment debuff could fall off. But for the most part, this is good. He didn't miss a lot of consumptions, so that's fine there. Art of War procs used, so again, most of them were used there. Art of War is a little bit special because there's always a chance that it procs like at the last second anyways, and it really wasn't a benefit to you. Or so much time expires due to running out for mechanics, or again getting frozen on the first phase transition. That looks fine there. For Shield of Vengeance Absorb, when he used Shield of Vengeance, it was fully absorbed, so he got some extra damage there. Now downtime was a little bit high, and we'll go back to the timeline in a little bit and we'll explain that. We already talked about Righteous Verdict. One of the new boxes here, though, is Targets Hit, and it's for Wake of Ashes. So we can see here that when he used Wake of Ashes, on average, he hit 1.56 targets. And he did have one Wake cast where he hit 0 targets, so that was no good. You always want to make sure that you're in range of a target when you use your Wake. And a good way to tell that is it has a 12-yard range, which is the same as Blade of Justice. So if your blade is in range, then your Wake should also be in range as long as you're facing the right direction. It also has some other little stats here about your damage contribution from the rep buff. So you got 226 DPS there. This information is like all the same from before. There's a distance moved. It has a little bit of a graph here now about when you were moving. It has the same item stats here, where you can see your quick nav or your weapon enchant, your Azurite traits or trinkets if they appear here. They'll show up there. So one thing that we have here is that there is 9 holy power wasted. So if we scroll down here, we can see where this waste happened. So there was 1 on Hammer, 2 on Judgment, 4 on Wake, 1 on Crusader Strike, and 1 on Blade. So very minor waste overall. But abilities like Blade or Crusader Strike or Judgment or Hammer or Wrath should have 0. So there is some erroneous cast there before spenders were used. And there was 4 on Wake, and like we mentioned before, Wake is a bit special. Sometimes it's okay to waste HP, sometimes it's not. You never want to waste 2 or more in a single cast. And if you're going to waste a single holy power, you only want to do that when Blade of Justice is on cooldown. And we have an easy way to check this here is on the timeline, because it will highlight these instances. So we'll scroll up here, and we'll go back to the timeline. We're just going to scroll a bit. And here we go. We see that we've got a couple red boxes here. So first one was on Blade. So it says Blade of Justice was cast without 4 holy power. Make sure to either use a 1 holy power generator or a holy power spender first to avoid overcapping. So he was at 4, he used Blade, he got 1, and 1 was wasted. And he followed up that Blade with a Crusader Strike. Well, he was already at max. You can probably hear my cat crying in the background. So again, he would have wanted to use that Templar's Verdict earlier. But we can scroll on a bit further here. Here's that Judgment, where that 1 was wasted. That was at max holy power there. Here's one where Wake lit up. So 1 holy power was wasted while Blade of Justice was off of cooldown. Use Blade of Justice and a holy power spender before using Wake. So we can see that Blade's here. This is the cooldown bar for Blade. So we can see that Blade was up. So it should have been Blade, Spender, Wake, Spender. And here's from the Hammer Wrathcast. It looks like he was getting back in range potentially though, so you might have just been throwing it out there because. But generally, you'll avoid wasting holy power. So there was one from there, and there was also one here from Judgment.
Unless you're like really just trying to make sure something dies, there's not really a need to hit button when you're capped on holy power like that.
Yeah.
So in this instance, like it's probably pretty unnecessary.
So that was the holy power that we covered there. So as far as abilities, it shows there's a little bit of can be improved for Crusader Strike, Judgment, and Blade. So I'll go back to the timeline there and go over what could have been done to help with that and see how to identify that. And also for Shield of Vengeance, though the 2 times he did use it, he did fully absorb it. He probably could have got a couple more cast here realistically. And I know in our FAQ in the general section there's a little boss tips section which has guide links, and some of those guides do go over on what sources of damage you can use Shield of Vengeance on for cheese, or let you know if you should be saving it for something important. So
Yeah,
always make sure you use that.
I try to make a point to include that in mine at least.
Yeah, mine as well.
Even though it's something I could be better at in practice. Do as I say and not as I do, right?
Yeah. So a couple things we see here that are interesting for Rastakhan, that Divine Shield was not used. And there was one Blessing of Protection, so that's something we'll look at and see when that was used. But we'll go back to our timeline, so we'll go over that and we'll go over some downtime. Now on the timeline, there will be obvious cases of downtime because someone was moving or running to a new target for whatever reason. And there will also be downtime because abilities were on cooldown. And there's also downtime from not pressing your abilities as fast as you could be. And the way we look for that is from this one bar here where our abilities are used. So we'll scroll over a little bit to a more apparent example. Like right here. After each ability, there's a little yellow bar. That yellow bar is how long the global cooldown is. And we can see there's a gap here before he used his next ability. And what we would do is we would check down below to see, was everything on cooldown or was there an ability he could have used? So that was the combat pot, that doesn't really matter. So his Judgment was on cooldown, so he couldn't judge. He just used Blade, so Blade was on cooldown. Now Crusader Strike here. Crusader Strike is a little bit different because it has 2 charges. It'll show the icon. But there's also a little white bar here, which shows when a charge was restored. Like that. So he did have 1 charge of Crusader Strike he could have used following that Blade. And Hammer of Wrath was on cooldown because he just used that as well. So there's a little bit of downtime there. He could have been a little bit faster there and pressed Crusader Strike. Usually 1 instance isn't a huge issue, but it becomes more of an issue if it's happening throughout the fight. Because over the entire course of a fight, especially a long fight like this, which is 7.5 minutes, those can definitely add up pretty fast.
If you like really, really want to check, you can go watch the replay. Like, I believe this timeline won't show if they're like out of range for whatever reason.
Yeah, and this is just the ability timeline, so you can't see that very clearly. But it'll be easier to tell by if it's a really large gap of downtime, which we'll see later, then you can pretty clearly tell if something was going on.
Yeah. I just imagine all the instances where some asshole runs fire in front of me, and I gotta step back a second.
Especially on Rastakhan.
Mm-hmm. Or like the ads Twitch or something. But that's being, I don't know, real thorough.
Yep.
It does come in handy in that like bigger gaps though, like if you're really trying to figure out what's going can go watch the replay and figure out, like, did you fuck up or were you just put in a bad situation?
Yeah, if we scroll through, we can see some more of these little bit of gaps there. They don't seem too much, but they add up again. So here's another case where Crusader Strike was available. We got a gap here before Wake was used, where Wake was available. Now here's where the transition happens. So he was frozen here. So that's unavoidable downtime right here. So this is back when they get unfrozen, using some abilities there. So in this case, there was some downtime here, but his abilities were on cooldown, so he couldn't do anything about it there. So that was fine. Now as we scroll over, you see it happens a couple more times here where he is locked out of his abilities. He has nothing he can use, so this is some unavoidable downtime due to just how the rotation works.
Now, sometimes it's also if you haven't planned your ability, you're going to make it worse than it is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you can see there, obviously, there was no other ability for him to hit. So, it's, yeah.
It just happens.
Yeah, one of the things that can lead to these gaps more often than not is if you're spending your holy power as soon as you can. That's something you generally do not aim to do. Well, in terms of DPS, it might not be too much worse, but it is technically worse still. But what it does, it puts more gaps in the rotation. So the general sort of idea is when you can build, you want to build first without overcapping, and then you'll spend. And honestly, for a more in-depth explanation, that can be found in our guides, which again are in the FAQ.
Yeah, I believe your guide, so Red Paladin XYZ, has like pretty much a line-by-line breakdown of the APL. So if like you really, really want to know all the details or stuff like that, that's there. It is interesting at the least.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of broken down. There's like the here's what you should do section, and then there's like a further considerations section, which talks about a bit more if you want to know a bit more about how the sim handles it. But in that section, for the most part, there's a few exceptions there, like Imperium Power. You want to read about it there. But some of the things, it has very specific use cases for our Holy Power generators, which you may or may not remember them all, or be able to react properly in combat, so you can just kind of ignore them.
Yeah.
But if you want to learn more about it, it's there.
Because, like, end of the day, if you just follow some basic rules, like build if you can build without overcapping, and then spend when you can't build anymore, you're going to do just fine.
That's, in my opinion, anyways, that's pretty much, like, if you can get that, everything else will either come and follow, or it's just that much worse.
Most of us are not robots. Some of us are, but most of us are not.
Yep. And sometimes robots are not reliable sources of information.
Yep. Ain't that true?
Alright, so what we got here is our second crusade. There's no red line around it, which is good, which means he went into crusade, and he already had at least 3 holy power. When you use crusade subsequently, you want to make sure you have at least 3 holy power already, if not more. But this is another case where the trinket was used before crusade, which usually indicates that they have a macro together, which for crusade, you definitely want to avoid that. It's much more beneficial to make sure that trinket is used at a later point when you have the stacks already. But you can see here, he goes into crusade, he gets an Imperium Power proc, so he uses his 2 spenders. He's cleaving here, because at this point in the fight, this is when the zombie dress totem pops up, so you can cleave. But generally it is 2 targets, and he's using Righteous Verdict, so you usually want to use Templars Verdict instead on 2 target scenarios.
More reason to switch to Zeal. I just switched to it, and like, especially for farm, I just leave it on Zeal, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, what you can really do is, like, for the first 6 bosses, or sorry, for the first, Yeah, realistically, for the first 6 bosses, you can just leave it on Zeal. And then the last 3 switch to Righteous Verdict, because that's where it's really important to have that damage. General rule of thumb.
But at least until that point, it's better to like forget to swap to Righteous Verdict than it is to forget to swap to Zeal.
Yeah.
If you're like me, I gave up on just trying to remember to switch talents all the time. I'm just bad at it, and usually I have other things to tend to. So I think a lot of people just keep on Righteous Verdict because that's how it was, and like we'll do. It's just the opposite, so better to just keep that. There are really only a few fights where you would use.
Yeah, and here's where we see that first usage of Bop, which is a bit odd. I watched the replay. I don't know why he used Bop at this time. So it was used there for some reason. Now here's some other large gaps. This is what happens when Plague of Fire spreads on Rastakhan.
Juicy.
You end up in scenarios like this where you think you're okay, then you get it, you run out, and it drops, and you try to run back in, and someone gets it to you again, you gotta run back out, and it's a mess. So definitely try to get everyone on the pre-spread. I mean, there's also a weak aura for it that puts like a green circle around you that tells you when to move, so if you listen to your weak auras, it'll help you for the most part. The Rastakhan's a bit weird. Like if it says he's gonna do Plague of Fire, but he's also doing Scorching Detonation, that Plague of Fire will happen after the Scorching Detonation.
Spell queuing is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we scroll over here again, like some spots here where he can't do anything, so it's expected downtime. And that's pretty much how you go through it throughout the fight. Something that we also go over is one of the common things that we see happen is people will prioritize their judgment over their blade. But for the most part in this log, he is properly using blade over judgment, so that's good. And to check that, you just look when it's used. You look down, you see what was off cooldown, and you want to make sure you're using blade first, as long as you're not going to overcap. Now we'll scroll back. Here's where we get a little bit more downtime. No, we were there already. This is a Plague of Fire downtime we just talked about. We got some downtime here. Around this point in the fight, this is when things like Inevitable End are happening. And Inevitable End is actually physical damage. It lasts for 10 seconds. So Bop will actually keep you safe from that. So I recommend running out for 1 second first to make sure to last. Bop yourself, and then you can just sit and tunnel Rastakhan and not take any damage.
In 10 seconds is a really big uptime boost too.
It is. And also, Divine Shield also works, but Divine Shield only lasts for 8 seconds. So run out for a few seconds first, pop your Divine Shield, and then go back to hammering Rastakhan. And you can cut out a lot of downtime there. So those are the 2 good use cases on this fight for Bop and for Bubble. So we can see again, like something like this. This could also be, he did get Death's Door 1 time later on. So this could have also been from dropping a Death's Door. So there's some unavoidable downtime in that regard as well. Like if we go to the log here, we can check. Go to debuffs. See there's Death's Door, he got it twice actually. Put those up there. A neat feature of Warcraft logs, if you pin something like that and you go to replay, you now get a slideshow here, where any of your pinned events, if you press this little arrow, it'll go to that pinned event. Like here, this is when he gets a Death's Door. Here's where Death's Door fades, he dropped it over there. Go to the next one. He's in the clump somewhere. And he runs out and he drops his death door like a good raider. This is also the single greatest feature on Warcraft logs now, by the way, is when you pin something and get the slideshow. So definitely make use of that.
Yeah, this is like exactly what I'm doing right now. So I'm like, what? Why did he bop?
Yeah, so if you want to know why he bopped, we can cancel that one. Go back to Analyze. We'll click on him. We'll go to Buffs. Scroll down. Click the plus sign. It's pinned. We go to Replay. The slideshow will refresh here. We were on a previous one, so we have to go back. Oh, did we find a bug? Let's refresh the page.
Sometimes that just happens. I don't know.
Yeah, with like going back and forth on Warcraft logs, sometimes it's not what
Yeah.
you want or expect.
Yeah,
Looks
so just
like
refresh the
there-
page.
When he did it.
Yeah, so here he is. He uses Bop on himself at this point. That's when Bop ends. He was on the boss the entire time. So not really sure why it was used there. He wasn't mind controlled, so it didn't like forcefully cast Bop on him. It was someone else who was mind controlled. But that's how you can check these little events. You can just pin them, and rather than fiddle with the little time stick down here, you just use the little slideshow. Yeah, and as far as the log goes, that's what we got for him. That was just some of the things he could do to improve. Overall, he is definitely playing pretty good already. I believe he's killed Mechatork already too, so he has a decent level of progress. And what I recommend for people that are further progressed along, that are definitely in the later fights like this, it's definitely a good thing to learn how to analyze your own logs. So I hope you can take some of this information and apply it to yourself on other fights. And again, as well, there's also that pinned video and ret questions that you can use to follow along as well that talks about some of these in a bit more detail.
And if you're just looking for somebody to double check your work, like obviously that's fine. I'd be like super stoked about anyone who came in and was like, I did this and these are all the things that I found. Did I do a good job?
Yep.
You know?
Please note how she said it, though. She didn't say come and say, hey, how can I improve? She said, hey, it was, hey, I looked at my logs and I seen this and this and this. Is there something else I'm missing?
Yeah. We love people who tried. Or are just like, if you tried it all and you're unsure, people are gonna like pretty much swarm to you to try to like make sure that you're doing everything right, because we love a person who tries.
Yeah, we're all tryhards too, so it's okay.
And before we entirely close the subject of Warcraft logs and WoW Analyzer here, did anyone have any questions in chat about things about the log here? Or general questions, maybe?
I'd like to know why Tom is big dumb.
Wouldn't everybody?
Wow.
I wasn't the one who asked. I'm just, I'm just asking what the people want.
I think it's because he hasn't continued to play Chrono Trigger. It's gonna be my bad.
Alright, not seeing any questions. If questions do come up, though, definitely just ask them in the chat there while we're here. And now we'll talk about some other fun stuff, such as the magic of simulation craft.
I remember back in the good old days when I was like, damn, What a beautiful program. Just a fine specimen of community getting together and making things work. And it is. It's great. But sometimes it's 12 hours before patch, and the patch thing's still. I think that's where we're going with this, right?
Yeah.
'Twas the night before patch.
You do
Off
you.
to the sim.
Yep. But yeah, I'm sure everybody noticed that it was literally the night before patch, and we didn't have any sims up for Zandalari. Simcraft doesn't just work, somebody has to make it work. And I guess what happened was everyone thought that somebody was working on it, but that person wasn't actually working. And yeah, things that happen. But if there's like not sims up for stuff, it's not because we just haven't gotten around to it. It's probably because it just doesn't work. We love sims as much as anybody else.
Imagine like that Austin Powers guy, Gold member, saying that he loves gold. It's us and Sims. That's pretty much how it is.
Yeah, we love that shit.
Someone make that GIF now, please.
Please make that.
If not, I will make it later.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess you'd probably know better, Skelly, but like how many people were involved in making the Loa stuff work, right? Like how many steps are there to implementing something like that?
There's a lot. Like when a new race gets added to Simcraft, or like new spells in general, the first thing for the new race is they gotta whitelist all the procs for all the individual Loas. So when Simcraft generates its spell data, it has a list of spells that it will look for to exclude all the junk. So those have to be whitelisted. After those are whitelisted, the race has to be added to the race selection. And when you add to the race selection, you have to add to other parts. You have to add to the report to make sure the report shows the name of the race. If you save things like the JSON, it has to be added to the JSON report to make sure the race shows up there. And then with Zandalari being special, it's not just adding the racial, it's they have to add a selector. So they had to make the new Loa option. So for each Loa, they had to name those values, and they had to set them up how to use it, which is going to be Zandalari _ Loa equals whatever your Loa is. Then they got to add all the proper spell effects for each of those Loas. Then they got to go through and test those Loas and make sure they work. And then when they find bugs with the Loas, such as, hey, for some reason, if you're a fire mage and you have Paku, the crit buff doesn't work. And they got to file bug reports about that. And then they get hotfixed, hopefully, like that did. And they gotta verify those in-game to make sure the proc is working properly. Like for Kimball, it took a moment because they had to verify that Kimball was there. Then they had to adjust to make it stack. Then they had to see if does that bleed? Is it a pandemic? Is it a legacy refresh? Are the ticks hasted? Sometimes that info is in spell data. Sometimes it is not. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Not only do they actually have to like go through all these steps, they also have to go back and make sure it's accurate to in-game. So
that's probably one of the biggest parts of the development of SimC is making sure that things actually mirror what the game. You can imagine that there's a lot of people working on it, which is the only reason that most of that actually gets.
Yeah, and also it's like everybody who's working on it for the most part like has a day job and other things. So if somebody comes in and is like, oh, this is not working at 2 a.m., that thing might not get fixed for another 24 hours. And then they have to go through this entire, quality check again. So, Simcraft definitely doesn't just magically work. Because they can pull the spell data, like we said, but like that, it doesn't just. They don't just hit a button and magically like everything works right. It's so far from that.
And sometimes it feels like magic for sure, but there's, oh boy, a lot that goes in that.
And for an example of spell data being useless is her Light's Decree. In spell data, it says Light's Decree is physical damage, even though we know it's holy damage. And it's also buffed by like our mastery and things that give mastery. That information is not in spell data for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Sorry, so you're saying the spell data claims that it's physical damage?
Yes.
What? God damn it, Blizzard.
We had to manually override it to be holy, and then manually overwrite that to be affected by the ret damage resources. Such as like Inquisition and Crusade and Execution Sentence and all that good stuff.
There's so many, like, I am not involved in like any of the really meaty stuff, but there have been times where I find things that aren't working like they're supposed to, and it's just a whole bunch of like, what? Like, why is this doing this? And then I go and ask, and everybody's like, I don't know. Blizzard things, I guess.
I think we've talked to Malekith a couple times, and it's been like, hey, did you know this is the way it's working? And the response sometimes, isn't that how it works? And so you like it's really hard to verify these things and make sure that things are accurate.
Yeah, and it's just like the amount of people that are just not only working on like making things accurate, but also like investigating stupid little bugs and, you know, pointing them out. There's just a lot of moving parts before something is actually finalized. And that's why sometimes we don't have Sims for you, even though it's real scary and we probably should have Sims. Like, I think even Tuesday we were like, here are the preliminary Sims, but we don't know for sure if they're bugged. Or we don't know, like, I think Kimball, right, you said?
Yeah.
Was all sorts of messed up. And yeah, it's all really fun.
And if you're ever wondering if something in the sim doesn't work properly, if there's something not working right, it's probably going to be pinned.
Yep.
That said, if you do feel like something is genuinely broken or is genuinely not mirroring what in game, do some investigation yourself. Look at the sim, take a quick look in game, and if you still think there's a problem, we're happy to like hear that information if you've done some like
anything
footwork on it, right?
Because we had somebody come in the other day and was like, heads up, guys, I just want everybody to know that Razdung's big red button got. We're like, what? And so all of us are looking, and it's just like, no, that's not even a little bit. What if you come in and you're like, hey, this seems weird, can somebody help? Please do that. Like, if you do see something weird, just like let us know. I think somebody came in the other day and they're like, hey, I'm using 2 on-use trinkets and the sim is only using 1 at all, ever. Why is it doing that? You know, that stuff is really helpful because that stuff just happens. There's just so many trinket combinations that sometimes things just like either bug out or just are finicky.
Yeah, or they're not designed to be used that way in the first place.
Yes, exactly.
And then if you do want to design the on-use trinkets, it's actually a nightmare because you have to specify all the individual ones. Because you can't just say on-use because some on-use trinkets are damaged, such as Razdungs, which don't matter when you use them because they're not buffed by wings.
Yep.
Or they're channeled like Grongs or Merekthas. There's no identifier that separates a stat on-use versus a channeled or a damage on-use. So if you wanted to actually properly account for all those stat on-use trinkets, you have to name each one individually, and that's a nightmare.
So, yeah, things get weird sometimes. But, I mean, I can say that usually things get fixed pretty quickly. Like, the reason that the Zandalari weren't in and we didn't have stuff up is because we knew that it was not going to, like, whatever thing was in there that was like duct taped together, whatever we could do to produce a result was not going to be accurate. So,
and sometimes people just don't know that the issue exists.
Yes, that happens too. There's one at the beginning of the expansion. We were like, oh my god, how did this happen? I don't remember.
It was the Avenging Wrath Critical Strike whitelist.
Yeah.
There was no whitelist. It was buffing everything.
Yep, it was buffing. So it was like overvaluing like damage trinkets and stuff because it was making them crap. So like stuff like that happens where it's like definitely not game breaking, still relatively accurate, but also just like, why is this happening? Still a bug. Just weird stuff. But like I said, thankfully there's like so many people that are just working with the program that usually stuff gets noticed pretty quick, which is nice.
Like every single class has their own usually group of people that are working on it, and they'll update. And there's some nice people that work on all of it, and so like they're usually pretty good about, hey, we heard the thing, let's go investigate, because this is the sort of stuff they like to do, I hope.
Yeah. There's like a lot of us in at least on the red side of things that just like I don't have anything formally to do with Simcraft. I work with it enough, like I said, that sometimes I notice shit, and there's like a ton of people like me. And every like little every eye helps when you're talking about quality control. That's a whole other discussion. But yeah, I guess that's my whole thing. Simcraft doesn't just work, unfortunately.
Yeah, so a quick recap there is, yes, your sim will use your trinkets in most cases. Yes, the sim accounts for your Azurite traits. Yes, the sim accounts for your talents. No, it's not magic. Someone implemented those to make sure they work.
Yep. And if something seems real weird and you can't figure it out, just say something. Just don't come into Discord making wild claims about stuff.
Yeah. Which brings the topic of Zandalari Loas. What Loa do you pick? So when you race change to Zandalari, or if for some reason you leveled one, or you maybe used the XP pot glitch and leveled up one really fast, your default Loa is Paku. And as Rhett, I'm going to recommend that you just stick to Paku the entire time.
Yeah, that's all.
Now, if you want a more technical answer, is that Paku will be better in AoE, and Kimball can slightly edge out Paku in single target. But when it comes to Loas, once you pick one, there's a 5-day cooldown. Unless you do a single target fight one day, and then 5 days later you do an AoE fight, there's no reason to switch your Loa.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take
it could potentially be something to concern yourself with if you're like progressing on a specific boss and plan to be working on it for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Usually that's not how things are.
And then it's just so insignificant, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is the difference on single target between Paku and Kimball, right?
It's 20 DPS, which you're not going to tell in game. You're not going to see that difference.
You know, it could. That's within.
It's less
it's
than
so
0.1%.
small. Yes, it's so small that it could hurt you to switch, right?
Yeah, and if you look at other variables too, like let's say you not just AoE versus single target. Let's say you adjust for fight lengths. Like let's say some shorter fights, like the first few in. My brain just died. Battle of Zarlor. They're generally shorter fights. On those shorter fights, Paku tends to be stronger than Kimball, even on single target on shorter fights.
Which is probably just because of you get more procs, so you get more haste procs, which means it's got a higher chance to proc, especially with Lust going up at the stage, some small stuff like that.
Yep.
But again, even then, the difference between them is so small.
It's just a good example of like use your brain and apply what you know about like how practical something is, you know?
Yeah, so there's 3 lows that increase DPS. It was Kimball, Paku, and also Bonsomdi. And realistically, if you want, you could use any of those. But if you don't really care or just want the best overall, just pick Paku. But they're all very close in both single target and AoE. And the best Loa for LFR is Gronk for the move speed, so you can run from the people asking you if you need that loot.
That's a good point. Do you need?
I like that answer. But I mean, that's pretty much it for that stuff for the Loa. That's not all that changed in the patch.
Oh, there's also talents. So there's 2 things that happened with our tier 100 talent row, either directly or indirectly. So the indirectly was that Avenging Wrath got changed. Now when you use Avenging Wrath, either your first Templar's Verdict or your first Divine Storm will be a critical hit, guaranteed. And this only applies to Avenging Wrath, it does not apply to Crusade. And because it only applies to Avenging Wrath, it can make Divine Purpose and Inquisition sim a bit better than they were previously for you. And then on the direct side of things, from 8.0 to 8.1, there was a bug with Inquisition. Inquisition was not actually buffing the damage of auto attacks for whatever reason. And as of 8.1.5, that bug has been fixed. So that made Inquisition a little bit stronger. So Inquisition
that's a really good example of like bugs that just happen and nobody really knows.
Yeah, we didn't even bother checking for that. Like, that bug we didn't realize that was a thing until like a couple months into the expansion.
Because it's just so insignificant, right? Like, I mean, it might be enough to push it over, but if your talent choices are that close, you're going to be using logic and not just what the sim tells you to pick, right?
Or like where the fight mechanics might dictate the talent you choose more than your auto attacks getting buffed.
Yeah. So, so to answer your questions of what talent do I use now, the same one you always use. You sim it, and then you make an informed decision based on your needs.
Like, Inquisition doesn't really mean anything if you really need burst, right? Like, Inquisition could be 100 DPS better. But if you're having trouble bursting something down, you're gonna pick Crusade, you know? And that's just kind of how it is this season, is like burst is just so good. Maybe I'm biased because I have seen people like start leaning towards using Inquisition, but
yeah, I mean, there's definitely some examples where Inquisition is simming hundreds of DPS better for some people. I know for my character personally that Crusade's still best for my character, so.
And there's some people that have like the Exberg build with a lot of crit, and you're gonna see Crusade lose a lot of its value on that. And so you might see Inquisition go nuts. So I mean, there's options.
You know what I'm really curious? What would happen if it was your first Blade of Justice and Avenging Wrath always critically hit?
Oh boy. Expert.
That would be a little silly.
There's a thought experiment.
I think I heard
about it.
I think I heard Stone's heart rate go up a little bit from that.
I think I could say if it happened, that would hands down make the Exberg build the best.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, still use your brain. I know it sucks, but like I don't like using my brain. The Sims are only good for like adding to what you know is strong and not like, you know, if defined purpose Sims better, you need to ask yourself, what is the downside of me picking this talent in this situation, right? Sims are great and we love them, but you know, they're only a way of quantifying how good something is in like one situation. So, and also, I don't know about you, but I'm not doing that 10,000 times and then caring about the average of that 10,000. A wise man once said, you only get one shot and one opportunity.
Okay.
I use the term wise loosely.
All right, and as far as other patch changes, I think I'm going to leave this next one up to Reb.
Oh, well, I'm assuming you're talking about pony.
But of course,
I don't know why I've become the pony person.
Well, remember that one time you said you got to pick your, and you're adamant that the horse dismounting thing was a hill you were gonna die on.
Yes. Well, thankfully somebody has raced that hill. I'm sure we'll find other bugs with it. But yeah, it no longer will just remove your buff if you hit a wall the wrong way. So that's nice. So yeah, if you hit the button and clip a wall, it used to dismount you and therefore remove, and it doesn't do that anymore, supposedly. I believe it when I see it.
I haven't found a good wall to test it on, like out in the wild. So I've looked a couple times while I was walking around, but I didn't quite see one that I think would work. So like I should really just queue up for LFR for Old Year and go to the Fetid room and try it out.
I was just gonna say that because it has that weird like.
It has an angled wall.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, actually, I'm underneath an angled pillar right now. Oh, the horse's head is currently inside of the pillar, and he's still mounted. Small victories. I'm not gonna say it was me losing my shit, but you know, maybe it was.
Well, someone was saying that they just flat out weren't aware that was.
It
was like a super quick fix once they.
No. They've known about it for a while, but when they heard about it, they were like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, it really lets you know that all those bug reports you file get heard.
Or at least some of them do.
Which, as a reminder, if that bug report form just had some drop-down boxes and some check boxes, you could get a lot better targeted feedback about things that are bugged. Like here, is it a talent or a core ability? Check this box. Which talent or core ability is causing this issue? Select it. But we'll get off that for now. But we do have a question in chat. It says, I do have one question, since it's been asked a lot lately. Why wouldn't you prioritize keeping Righteous Verdict up over keeping your builders on cooldown? So the short answer there is obviously that Righteous Verdict does not affect the rotation. You should not be delaying your other abilities to keep the Righteous Verdict buff up. And that all comes down to opportunity cost. So over the course of a fight, what ends up being more valuable? The potential of being able to use additional abilities, or the potential of getting one more Templar's Verdict buffed by 15%. And that one buffed Templar's Verdict is not enough to outweigh the benefits of having more frequent access to abilities over the course of the fight.
Just thinking about like raw numbers here, right? 15% of a Templar's Verdict. when you could get some holy power earlier. Like, and again, this is wildly napkin math, not at all accurate, but just like a ballpark of numbers. So 15%, when one holy power is worth, let's say, a third, which is more than double of that 15%. And so if you're, doing that and you delay like a Blade of Justice or a Judgment by a GCD or two to get that worked out, you're losing like half of a third, which still is a little bit more than 15%. And that's not even counting the damage that ability would do also. So again, rough numbers, not actually the numbers, but just doing some really quick napkin math, you're like, okay, it's probably like on that individual global, it's worth more to just hit that spender, lose the small amount of damage on your verdict and
I mean, even outside of napkin math, like I literally tried to strong arm Simcraft into trying to keep that buff up, and it yielded no different of a result. It was exactly because the way that you're supposed to be doing your rotation already, it already optimizes that talent. Like if you're doing it right, you're already doing it right. That's all. But yeah, like trying to force Simcraft to prioritize that buff, it literally just did nothing. I don't know. Maybe it was just me, but I can't be the only one who like tried to do that. So
I tried it a long time ago. I don't remember what the results were.
I mean, clearly not significant, or we would have changed it by now. It's not like the cloak was in Legion.
Yeah, and the main reason for that is, gotta remember, the cloak was only 4 seconds long.
And it was also a much, like it was 25%, I thought?
Originally it was 25.
Yeah.
And then it got knocked down a few picks. But at the same time, we also had, what's it called, Final Verdict still? The talent? I know it wasn't the hammer from WoD, but what's it called, Final Verdict? Where it increased the damage over holy power spenders. So it was double multiplier.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was like a 10 or 15% buff on verdict.
I mean, and that's not to say like if you have low uptime or usage on Righteous Verdict, like it's still kind of a red flag. It still means you should be doing something. It just doesn't mean that you should be directly trying to improve that uptime. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, if you improve your rotation, your uptime will improve.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's a matter of you need to be taking Zeal instead.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Oh, some poor soul just asked a question we just answered on stream in questions.
Hello? Check the stream. Hello?
That sounds reasonable.
Alright, so we did our logs, covered WoW Analyzer, some of the new features, some of the new Warcraft log features with a slideshow, which is amazing. We talked about the magic of Sims, or the lack thereof. Talked about some talents, talked about some Loas. We talked about horses.
Mm-hmm. Now, just, since we've covered pretty much everything we wanted to, just out of pure curiosity, when you guys simmed everything on Tuesday, did anything change for you guys? Because literally nothing changed for me.
Nothing changed for me.
No, nothing here.
Yeah, because I was beginning to wonder, am I in my own echo chamber right now when I'm telling people just keep playing?
Yeah, what do you think about it? Hey, you gotta realize the changes that happened, they're not lowering your DPS. If you're doing good DPS before the patch, you're gonna continue to do good DPS after the patch with that same setup.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't magically lose DPS because something else might be better.
Yeah. And the circumstances didn't change either. We're still in the same raid. we still have the Azurite traits to pick from. So, I don't know, just curious. Did you guys go troll?
Of course I did.
No.
Bunch of heathens in here.
Dude, okay, Arcane Torrent, if you're doing dungeons, is still so incredibly powerful.
Well, it's not as powerful as the Chad Delari, though.
I get.
True.
Have you found...
Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, have you found like good places to use Regenerate?
I found using it on a Mechatork. I can get a tick in sometimes, which is good enough for a fight like Mechatork, so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because that fight sucks. It does so much damage.
Yeah.
But a single tick there can save you.
Probably will always stay Blood Elf, because when I first started playing this game, when I was a wee lass, I asked my boyfriend, why can't I be a pretty elf? Why do I have to be this fat human? And I always wanted to be a pretty elf, but we were aligned. And now I can be a pretty elf, and fuck if I'm changing. The trolls are cool, though. If I was into alts, I'd probably do it.
Although, speaking of that, and I guess this might be venturing into like story spoiler territory, but did you guys finish the war camp?
I haven't touched the war campaign like forever, so.
Okay, I literally wouldn't have known about the neck upgrade if somebody hadn't told.
So at the beginning of this expansion, I was hoping that finally they're going to get rid of the faction divide somehow. And the expansion's like, no, we're doubling down on this whole like faction conflict bullshit. And now it looks like maybe I'm fucking right, and maybe we're getting some of the end of this faction divide nonsense.
Maybe.
Just
but Shouldice, what about that Forbes interview that Ion did at the beginning of BFA?
Dude, it's 200 IQ. You've gotta throw people off your scent.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Vanilla WoW. You think you do, but you don't. Zandalari Paladins. Not gonna happen.
It's like, what would you rather do? Play a human paladin in vanilla where you auto attack and judge, or would you want to play a Zandalari paladin in BFA? There's just no comparison.
But guys, I don't understand. Why can Zandalari be paladin? That was a fun debate we had.
Yeah.
I currently enjoy the WoW forums, like, why can't Gold Tyrants be paladins? I'm just like, ha. Just fucking eating my popcorn, watching.
But man, their race would be so good for prod. It's such a strong tank, Rachel. It's oh my god.
Oh, we missed a very important topic.
Oh.
We always say that you should use the resources that are available in Discord, and when we say that, what we really mean is that you should use the resources that are in the Red FAQ. The reason that the resources are in the Red FAQ is that we have gone through them and we have verified that they are reasonably accurate and will get you to where you need to be. As you might notice in the Discord, though, we do have a stream and video links channel where sometimes people post their own video guides, and sometimes that's not enough for them and they post their videos in the questions channel or Rat General as well. And sometimes you go and watch those videos and they literally made one statement that was correct and everything else was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, that's not to say that we hold the key to every good resource. Like, there could be things out there that we have missed. You know, not everyone is in Pally Discord. But if you want to be sure, then just go to the FAQ.
I mean, it's also been a bit of a pastime now, I think, when we end up going on YouTube and looking. Let's call them questionable guys that advocate for 25% haste.
Yeah, it's just like, I feel like this could be a whole ass topic, but when you're surrounded by people that are constantly talking about it, talking about changes, talking about SimCraft, talking about whatever. If you're really deeply ingrained in the community and like at least adjacent to the theory crafters and everything, the likelihood that your source is going to be accurate is significantly higher. So it's not even to just shit on people that make those guides. It's just, they're less likely to be accurate because there's less people, going back to the SimCraft thing, there's less people to sit there and fact check you, right? Like if you do something alone, there's only so many things you're going to get right.
And on top of that, like you can perform really well without knowing all of it. And you can do that and give people advice that may not be the best.
Yep. You can, in fact, get world first mythic change and raise some serious questions. And that's fine. It just goes to show, like, being a good player is what matters. Not every good player is a theory crafter or a resource maker.
And some things like what gems you use aren't really the biggest impact on whether you're not. It's things like not dying and getting good uptime on the boss, and just hitting buttons in general and not sitting there waiting.
Which, like, I don't know, seems stupid and obvious, but it can be hard to like do a fight and do the mechanics and worry about all the things that you need to do and still hit your buttons, right?
Which is why Hakili's not a problem, and it's perfectly fine if you. It's not a crutch. It's not. You're not a bad player for using it.
We've found ourselves at the rant tree where there's any number of offshoots that we could go to, right?
Yeah, and we had another question in chat about, will the trinket from Crucible be better than Medallion? That trinket is going to be a lesson to a lot of people that they have to make a cancel or a macro, is what I will say.
What does it do again?
It's the one that you take increasing shadow damage as it's active.
Yes.
With that dot. That will eventually kill you.
Doesn't it cancel if you use it?
Yeah, I think you just hit the button again to cancel.
Yeah. Either way, pressing another button or the same button again is something people...
Being aware of your health. I guess.
Think some like quick numbers that people were doing when we first saw the trinket, something like over the course of the first 20 or 25 seconds, it's not even that dangerous. It does like 200, 230k damage. And then over the last 3 seconds, it does like another 250, 300k damage. And so like the level of danger on that trinket is pretty intense only at the end. So it's definitely something that you can keep an eye on. And then imagine your entire melee roster popping at the same time.
And God forbid you drop below 20% health and have Treacherous Covenant and take a hit.
Didn't even think
you are donezo.
Oh my goodness. But I mean, you can also almost get a full SOV off if you pop it before you hit. Or something like that.
Yeah, it's going to be better just to use it later. Like, it'll take a GCD, but I say it'll be worth it, as my initial thought.
Still better than hitting another Crusader Strike or something.
Yeah.
But like the Loa stuff from that's probably also not going to show up in SimC until it's much closer.
Yeah, because that's not coming out until next month, and who knows what we'll do to it by then. Like,
it's our fun.
It's like, I think Blizzard really doubled down. Oh, what's this? People want fun items? Let's just remove secondary stats and give them effects. And, this is my.
I mean, at least it's like a 2-boss intermediary raid where it's not going to be a full tier. You're not going to have items for every slot. It's just going to hold you over until we get the actual Shara raid.
What if they do that in Ashara too? Is every slot's an effect?
That'd be interesting.
I feel bad for some crap people if that happens.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna get some janky interactions.
I'd also feel bad for melee when the ranged are doing that, like hit the boss and then it shoots and it just hits melee every time.
Oh, I guess I'll say right now, in its current form, that trident from the raid is crap, by the way. Just saying.
Which one is it?
The one where it gives you like haste for some reason. Like it's like a damage absorb and haste something. I forget what it is. It's just not good.
Taking damage has a low chance to form a protective bubble around you. This is what you're talking about?
Yeah.
The tank one though, isn't it? Like it's meant for tank.
It's a two-handed. It's a two-handed polearm, so.
Yeah, and it has nothing on it.
Yeah, like that's for like monks, death knights, and druids.
Let me bring up the actual loot and I'll read it.
Yeah, it says class filter retribution, trident of deep ocean, and it just has stam and the proc on it.
100% a tank weapon.
Yeah, on the ret loot table, so that's fine.
Oh, that'll be good. I guess you just switch to prop for that boss like you do.
Yeah, because what it is, it says taking damage has a low chance to form a protective bubble around you for 40 seconds that absorbs 25% of incoming damage up to X amount plus versatility. When the bubble bursts, increase your primary stat by X amount for 1 minute, stacking up to 3 times.
And I guess if you could stack it up reliably, but I doubt.
Well, it's RPPM, so it's gonna happen. So
I guess it's a point.
It would have to be tuned so. I
So
don't even. Yeah.
It's 2 RPPM, so you're going to have it stacked to full pretty much the entire time. Just a matter of how long it takes to stack it to full. But it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the items look like they're just kind of a trap.
Yeah. And as we just said, SimC's probably not going to have it updated till much closer to release.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are still progressing in Desire lore right now.
Yeah, like all of us.
Don't even have as much. Yeah, almost done though. At least I hope. I mean, you just started on Jaina recently, didn't you?
Yeah, we had 30 minutes on Jaina. It was very fun.
Honestly, I don't even know if we'll get to her in a meaningful capacity, and I'm not even upset.
There's no reason to be upset if you don't get to Jaina in this raid tier. I will say that now.
I mean, it's a lot of people say it's just as bad as Gahoon because it's a lot more RNG and a lot it's not as crazy stupid mechanics, but it's a lot of RNG.
What got me is people saying it's worse than Kill Jade, and that's a nope from me.
If you want a benchmark to be proud of your raid group, I'm going to say if your raid group kills Mechatork, you should feel okay. And if you kill Stormwall, which Stormwall I think is easier than Mechatork, even better.
I think the thing about Stormwall is it just puts a lot more emphasis on the people that are doing and less on everybody has to be good at a mechanic. Yeah. Which is I think where a lot of the problems on Mechator come from.
I almost rather kill Gahoon again than do Mechatork.
The Mechatork? Really?
Yes.
Oh man. The Gahoon was so bad. I genuinely wanted to log out for Gahoon on farms and Mechatork. We struggle with it sometimes, but it's not that bad.
Probably depends on your group, right?
Yeah, it does.
I imagine it stretches inter-raider bonds and creates tension.
Inter-raider bond?
Yeah. I imagine it's probably better for groups that have an easier time letting shit go.
Honestly, it's not even the like calling out the colors and stuff on
That's the
the
easy
bots
part.
is actually like super.
Mhm.
That's so easy. Apparently, dropping your stupid gigavolt bombs in the right spot is hard.
And to be fair, like the back, like I don't know, depending like if you're facing the stairs going up, the one that's in the back left, that's such a horrible design spot. Because if like in the middle the rock is broken, you can actually walk over the rock. If you're standing behind the rock where you can walk over it, the blast actually goes over the rock and hits people. So you got a very little small window where you can drop that. And you have the little secondary point behind that little like secondary pillar. You can also drop it there as well. But if you drop it on that pillar, and the person on the other side of you is dropping their gigavolt on their back pillar, you both hit each other and get 2 stacks. It's a nightmare.
Like there's other places you can drop it to, like in the where you enter the room on the left. Depending on where you put your raid, you can like stick it in the corner under some of the shrubbery. And again, depending on where your group's standing, you can be in different spots. But like it's no part of that fight is like clean. I want to for gigavolt anyway.
The very first gigavolt is clean.
Yeah.
After that, it's not. Like honestly, if I got the one next to the stairs that you walk down every time, I'd be so happy. That is easily the best place to drop it. There's no worries there. You got so many spots.
I think a couple times we've clipped some tanks on the second one there because people like to try and do the cloak in the corner instead of behind the pillar. But oh boy.
I sometimes flip a healer because the healer likes to stand like on the staircase, and I don't know why he stands there. So if he's gonna get hit, he's gonna get hit. I don't care. But we have our tanks on the other side of the staircase, so they shouldn't get hit by anyone back there.
Oh, fun thing I did learn from that fight is that on the transition into the like after he's flying in the air when he comes down, if he targets someone who's on the stairs to come down, the little circle that tells you where he's landing doesn't show up.
Not surprised. Blizzard and indicators and slopes, not good.
Yeah.
Also, I will say one of the few times where it might be worth using Wake of Ashes and not hitting a target is on Mechatork. Because let's say your Wake of Ashes comes back as intermission happens, you may as well hit Wake and get your 5 holy power, and it'll be back by the time intermission is over.
I do it all the time, yeah.
Or if you're really bored, you can sit there and spam Blade and Judgment on him as he flies overhead. And waste holy power if that doesn't matter. I do that too.
Yeah, you do get some amount of damage on it. It's just negligible.
Yeah, you get like a couple hundred hits, like because he takes 99% reduced damage.
Arguably, you can use the holy power to heal a little bit.
Yeah, you could, but if you're a true paladin, you're using a selfless healer though.
So. Word of glory #1. But also selfless healer would be really good in that situation too.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is throw out a divine storm because it's not targeted and heal yourself.
I playing Legion days, messed up.
Mm-hmm.
That 10k healing.
I do kind of miss Divine Storm going forward. It's kind of buggy sometimes, so.
Except for that one time where it would go forward and despite going over a bunch of things, not actually do damage to anyone.
That was a fun bug. That was with the Nighthold. Like that was with the. It was during Nighthold that like the 0.5 patch came out with the new traits on the weapon, and that's when it broke.
Yeah, for me it was out for like a week. It just couldn't use Divine Storm. Oh, it was awful.
Or very early in Legion when it went through walls and pulled stuff.
It's like it was the mages on Maw Souls that would pull the whole fucking boat.
It was like anyone. Pretty sure Boomkins did it too.
Oh, also, mages are the worst on Kill Jaden. if their ignite jumped from Killer Jaden while he was flying to one of the ads on the outside the room, the fight would reset.
Huh.
Yep. Yeah, that happened to us more than once.
Wow.
Easily the most frustrating bug I could think of.
I mean, I think this week it was Jade Fire that just like reset on.
Fire.
We were like, okay.
If you try to do that fight on Tuesday, I feel sorry for you.
It was pretty bad.
It went fine for our group on Tuesday, so.
We had the stupid mage guy teleport into a bomb across the room, so he was LOS, just nuking us. Thanks, dude.
The multi-sided strike that throws everybody up in the air, the graphic for it would spawn before he knocked everyone up in the air. And so the entire platform is just covered in these like monk green circles. And so of course you're lagging to shit because they're all stacked on top.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would have... I don't know if this is like specifically with the Blizzard UI, but like their speech bubble would like block the multi-sided strike. So it was bad. And then like a couple times, sometimes it's really hard to hit the bombs at all, and it just thinks you're LOS still. There was a couple of them that I couldn't hit for like their holder rate.
Yeah, those get tricky sometimes. Like I'll be in there, like I'm trying to hit them, and it's like, nah, you can't do that.
The problem we had was the beam animation desynced from where it hacked, and so like it would start like going counterclockwise, like it would go backwards and just start unwinding, and then you just die when it's facing the other direction. And it was, I mean, it was really funny the first time it happened.
Yeah,
you just watch the raid start to die, and everyone's like, "What happened?"
I had to make somebody else like hold the Grong orb because I would like hit it to cast and just like nothing. Just cause lag. I was like, I don't even want to mess with this anymore. Let's just 6. I don't care. I was not trying to mess with anything on Tuesday.
At least it was still better than Rosticon on Tuesday.
Yeah, a few brave guilds managed to kill Rosticon through all the issues on Tuesday, but not many.
I think you just got lucky with how many of your people were not on the West.
Is that what it was?
We saw some Blizzard posts that were like, if you have Cox, you're basically screwed.
Well, I don't have Cox, and I was screwed.
Might have been more than just that, but we had 2 or 3 in the raid, even on Thursday, that were having issues.
Like what we were trying to do, we were trying to plan for like, okay, we're gonna start lagging at this point. Let's all like just back out, spread in case fire happens, so we're in a safe spot already, and just spam ourselves heals and stuff, and try to stay alive for like the 10-second freeze. And it kind of worked, but we couldn't quite do it well enough, so we gave up.
Be careful with that though, Skelly, because you're gonna give them an idea where they're like, oh yeah, this mechanic is just that the entire raid lags for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think we're dying out on content here, but I see some holy boys in the other chat.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should raid them.
I don't know if they would appreciate that.
I don't know.
What if they're talking shit? You know.
What if they're not talking shit? What else are they talking about?
I mean, they're holy. They should not be toxic. Let's be honest here.
Oh, somebody in chat whose name I will not even.
Uwu?
Yeah.
That's definitely an Uwu.
Mm-hmm.
Uwu
with a 6'9" and an XD. Yep. We don't PvP. You're gonna have to visit.
Yeah, in the Discord, there's a PvP FAQ section, which will give you a bit more. If you want some more information, there's just the PvP chat.
Yep, they do have the PvP chat and some PvP Templars, and they are nice, I think.
Mostly.
But they'll be able to answer PvP questions for as much as I cannot stand PvP. I don't think any of us are really equipped for that.
No. PvP exists to get trinkets for PvE.
True.
Because we know how good the trinkets in PvE are these days.
Wishlist good trinkets for an entire expansion that come from relevant content such as raids.
I was about to say, like, if you don't count spy, then we don't.
Legendary spyglass.
So dumb.
I save things for a reason, Sheldice.
Yeah, no, I got that now. I'm gonna start saving more of my old shit in my bags.
You should see my bags full of trinkets from other expansions.
Oh, so every time a patch comes around, you just slap them all on and say, "Hey, are any of these
The only one I test every patch is I test the dark moon one
moon.
that reduces the manacles.
Dark was it promises or something?
I actually didn't test it this patch though.
Oh, you should.
I'm about to. Let me launch WoW.
Oh god. If this is broken again, I don't know what to do.
It'll be fine once they hire all those new devs.
Will it though?
I'm sure.
We're gonna get 20% better trinkets for 20% more devs.
Maybe we'll just get 20% more trinkets.
Please no.
From non-raid sources.
Can we have less variables, please? Just like in that regard. I like having options, but like at a certain point, options.
There's decision fatigue.
Yeah.
Also, can we just have less farming and shit in general too? I don't.
If we have to farm something, could you just make Maul of Souls 2.0 that gives gear and AP, please? That would be an upgrade to Islands, in my opinion.
What make them be relevant for something that isn't just AP? Some of the most boring content, and it only gives you AP. Like, look, the AP grind isn't even that bad. Like, if you just do a couple work quests and stuff a day, do your emissaries, it's fun. It is still the most mind-numbing content I have experienced to date.
I log in on Tuesday and clear my emissaries, and I log in on Saturday and clear my emissaries.
Now that the AP ones give more AP, I do those, and that's it. See, I liked Legion because in Legion I could stop doing emissaries.
Dude, just so didn't they mention? I swear to God, they mentioned this in one of the early. That World Quest content wasn't for Mythic Raiders, and that we should have like finished World Quest content and moved on.
I mean, I could imagine them saying something like that, to be honest.
But clearly, they want us to keep doing it for AP because it gives fucking non-trivial sort of amounts of it.
It would be fine if there was a cap on the necklace. That was like
there is a cap, Reb. It's level 50.
Okay, but effectively, there's not a cap on the necklace.
Unless you're Russian.
True. But I mean, you need like 48 to open all of your traits. Like,
yeah, why aren't you guys farming AP right to help with Jaina progression? Why don't you have all of your defensive traits right now? Fucking kill me.
I'm farming cauldrons.
I'm about to have my first defensive.
Got that earlier this week. And got called out for not having a 43 neck already.
Alright, I can't confirm that the Dark Moon card is not broken, unfortunately.
R.I.P. Well, while we've been doing this stream, I've gotten 1 cauldron, 3, 4 maybe? and a handful of potions. Just farm these cauldron things. And I would much rather do that than farm AP.
I mean, almost anything is better than AP farm at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I just can't.
It's like, I know they're really talking up about how with 8.2, if assuming your neck is an appropriate level, whatever that means to them, you don't have to worry about it anymore. But we'll have to see how that actually works out. What appropriate level actually means.
The gains that you get sometimes are like, what's 2 item levels on your neck worth? It's why am I spending hours or like an hour a day every day just to get 2 item levels on my neck once? Like that's fucking awful.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is my hell. If Reb's gonna pick the horse.
And why is there a 3-level gap of when you can unlock anything in some cases? Like, oh, you got all your DPS traits now. Now you need 3 more levels before you can pick another trait.
It's just like...
There's so much filler.
It feels like they're trying to make it like nerf the raid, basically. So like over time you're getting more traits, but like I don't think my whole raid had their 5 item levels unlocked on everything by the end of Old Tier. I mean, holidays, right? But I don't really see that changing, like, because it's 48 to unlock the last trait on this
Shoulders,
piece of ass, right? Yeah. It's just like, that's not going to help me by the time I get that. If I get 1 level a week, that's in like 7 weeks.
Yep.
This does not help me.
You know what doesn't help me? When I look at the AP table for the maximum AK and those last 2 levels still take well into the 100,000s of AP for the next rank, which is ridiculous.
Why would I want to do that?
Yeah, at a certain point, it's just like, why did you put a cap anyway? Like, I don't know. They had it right by the end of Legion. I don't know why they changed.
I mean, I personally don't like the idea of the endless grind, and like even if you don't have to do anything, it's just this extra layer of it's another symptom of, hey, we want you to just spend more time in the game. And like, I'm an adult, I'd like to think so anyways, and want to spend my life doing other things that aren't farming AP. And look, I'm still gonna be here. I'm still gonna play. I'm still gonna do raid. I'm still gonna play your. Like, you don't need to try and force me to stay here by giving me these stupid AP grinds.
Yeah, the moment you make something mandatory, even if the person wanted to do that in the first place, they're going to be less interested in that now, just because they have to do it.
Well, look what they did in like MOP, where it was like, you know, new content comes out and you have to do this for a month and then you're done. People did that without complaint. You know,
I complained, but I regret complaining in hindsight about that now. Bring that back.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, that legendary quest chain really wasn't that bad. It was a pain in the butt for alts and stuff to catch up, but aside from that, it was fun.
Like, people will play new content. People want to play new content, but like, if adding new content just makes the already unattainable more unattainable, it's just, I just don't get it. Like, they came so far on this system in Legion and then just like scrapped everything.
Or they could take the Broken Shore approach of it's 11 weeks of quests of 1 quest a week.
Well, they started that with a war campaign now too, because what, 2 or 3 this week, and we had 1 or 2 last week or something like that. I mean, I'm fine with the slower quest content release, but that's way better than getting you to farm AP.
Not wrong.
Yep. Because it's the rewards at this point are trivial. Like, cool, I just got level 41, so now I heal for 5,000 every 6 seconds. Yeah.
And like, some of those defensive traits aren't even good to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, if there's nobody near you, you heal for what, 2k a second?
Yeah, self-reliance.
Like, well, if you're a melee spec, you're always going to be next to a target.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're a tank, even you better be next to a target if you're a tank.
Yeah, and it's like that for a reason, and I appreciate that. But it's still one step before getting 5 item levels, and having 5 item levels open on 3 slots is kind of a big deal.
Reports of a powerful
You know, like
especially because they're big stat piece, like helm, shoulders, and chest are all high budget items generally. So you're gonna get a lot of primary stat out of it.
And also the stamina, because the 8.1.5 or 8.1.0 Azurites have that 20% increased stamina. So just survivability wise, like for progress, that would be nice to have. But it's like this is the end of the line you have to get to before you can even have it.
And like it doesn't matter for people like Method and Limit and those guys because they're going to be doing it the week after it comes out. So it doesn't matter for them. And the people that by the time they're not the kind of people that are going to be grinding all the way to 50. So
they need to just like
delete the system.
Well, they need to figure out, like, after we put out a content patch, how long do we want people grinding, right? Like it was Mop and like it was at the end of Legion. Like, how long do we want this to last for? How long before we burn people out? I'd say probably about 4 weeks. And by the 4th week, I'm like, thank God I'm done with this. Right?
Well,
but
like
anything after
break,
that,
right?
I just don't want to.
Like the Christmas break, I think was the worst possible way to do it when they're like, "Hey, we're turning 8 for the Christmas break." And it's like, did you just realize people were going to have too much artifact power going into Dazara lore? Like, is that a problem that you ran into? And your solution was to make it so that people have to grind more over the Christmas break instead of less? Like, if you're going to put a cap
on
a
number that you're comfortable with, an amount of time that you're comfortable with people grinding, and make that attainable, because otherwise people will keep doing this. That's all it is.
And like, as much as I know their opinion in several of things, like it's just a game, you can just not do these things. I want to point out lore just because I know he says these like it's just a game, it's your choice, and I will disagree with that. But like you're putting social pressure on a lot of people, especially those like running the guilds, are like, hey, we want to be a certain amount of successful, so we feel like people need to have a certain necklace, which then puts that pressure on the raiders to try and keep up even when they don't want to, which causes people to burn out more. And it's this huge problem that I gotta stop now.
I mean, it does suck because, well, especially like as a GM, it's like I've had to accept that there are people and like friends who are gonna leave and move on because they want to be in a guild full of people who grind and play 24/7, you know, and those people can't really coexist in a raid with, like, you know, in my humble retirement home anymore, you know.
I think we're running into some of that problem even in my guild, where we've got some people that are over and some people like me that are at 41 now, and it's like that doesn't sound like a really huge difference. It's like what, a defensive trait or two, and like even then you're getting some friction.
Yeah, exactly. Like we for the most part went through that in like the beginning of Legion, where there was like, you know, a pretty big handful of people who left because it was like a really big deal at the beginning of Legion. You know, if you play all the time, you're going to get kind of a leg up, and if you have a raid full of people who play all the time, you're going to get like a pretty significant leg. So I don't know, it just all sucks. That's all.
And just a philosophical thing, like I oppose the fact you get a potentially significant gain just from spending enough time in the game and not because you're improving your play or you're getting better. And like, sure, you need some kind of, hey, I got better gear, so I'm doing better. I got some player power, I'm doing better. But like that, there's just so much that they're saying you have to spend this time in the game.
Yeah.
Instead of, do you want to spend time? Here's something you can do because you want to spend the time.
Yeah. They're just kind of ignoring like the human element, you know. So I don't know. I think it's going to be like any other expansion, right? Where like the launch was real rough and they got a lot of things wrong, and by the end it's like, all right, at least you fixed it. But it is getting kind of exhausting that they can't get it right at the beginning, or at least almost right, and they unlearn the lessons that they had learned.
And that's what I was gonna say. It's just like they've learned lessons. There's clearly a lot that they learned and grew during the course of Legion in a system that they had just. And so why, like, sure, try new things. That's great, but I feel like they just ignored some of the things they learned from the artifact system back in Legion.
Yep. It'd be like that sometimes. This got depressing.
Yeah, sorry. This is we got started on a topic, and it just makes it personally, it makes me angry. Like, I love the game, I want to play it, but I don't want to be asked to go grind. Spend an hour a day after work before raid to go do world quests because I fucking hate world.
I am happy though that they put like AP on the bosses. So
I just miss the days where raid logging was possible. Even if it's not the best thing for like a raid group to have people raid logging, you can still like participate and have people who, let's say, had real life stuff come up, but they can still do raid. Like that, I feel like that's just not something that's sustainable for more than a week or two now.
Yep, especially if they're going to be turning off the catch-up mechanic.
Which I also just flat out don't.
Me neither.
Well, the same thing was in Legion. Why didn't you guys expect this? We did not have it in the patch notes. And also in Legion, we knew ahead of time what the cap was, and for BFA, the spell data indicated that there was more levels.
Yeah, and it's just like in Legion we had this, hey, it's the end of like your artifact knowledge stops here because this is kind of where the end of the tier is supposed to end. You got your 54 or your 35 or whatever those numbers were, and you don't need more than that, so we're not going to give you more artifact knowledge past what we expect you to.
And also in Legion, that first tier was a super long tier. The first tier was it was Emerald, Nightmare, TOV, and Nighthold. That was all one tier.
Right, and then when they turned AK back on after it not being available for a while, they gave you 4 or 5 or 6 levels. Like, there was this huge boost that like rocketed you ahead of where you would be even if you were slacking the whole time. And I feel like now when they turn it off over the Christmas break and then turn it back on, there was no like, hey, even if you weren't doing your thing. No, it's just one more level now. So it's not even like you're not even catching people up on the catch-up mechanic. You're like, oh no, you're still stuck there. Like,
I think like especially for a guild like mine, if we're getting to the last boss,
show me your coin and I will
in
show
a
you
raid,
my
and you're still having to farm it, it's a lot of stress because it's like that shit burns you out. Like it's okay for there to be points in the tier where you raid log.
Well, and it's like with the world quest thing I mentioned earlier, it's just, is there a point when you can be quote unquote done with? Like, I want to be able to finish a certain section of the game.
Exactly.
I just got 41 on my neck because today was AP, and I also got my rep box from Talanji, so now I have a gem hide for Chain of Progress. Go me.
Wow.
I think I got a resounding protection on my.
That would have been nice. It was either Gem Hide or the Divine Steed one, which I don't really need the cooldown reduction on Divine Steed, so.
Just imagine using it as a speed cooldown during JD.
I will say though, like for the most part, the raid is fun.
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty good, right?
Yeah, the raid is definitely good overall.
Ret is looking good, Mythic Plus is fun.
The boss fights aren't too cheesy.
So, yeah, it's just it just sucks to see the same cycle happen over and 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 over.
Oh, guess who? Guess who? Guess who got Wildcard Gaming wants you recruitment mail?
Oh, did you really?
Yes.
Is he starting it up again?
Oh no.
Somewhere else.
That's juicy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Hello,
Have it.
Illivath. I am Dasani from Wildcard Gaming on Alliance Sargeras. We are currently looking for an exceptional ret for our return to US 2nd next tier and all tiers thereafter. Our goal is to return to World Top 10 and to become the best Alliance guild in the world. If you have any questions or want to talk in Discord/in-game, please add the following. No. Hard pass.
But what you telling me that you don't want to get yelled at for 16 hours a day when content comes out?
I mean, I'll do that if you want, and then you don't have to be Alliance.
I can't, Reb. I don't know. I can't imagine you yelling at me for more than a half a second.
I don't yell. I get mean in other ways.
She can hurt you in other ways.
I'll ask you to level your neck higher.
Yep. No, I can be pretty passive aggressive.
Hey, wait. Kelby said that he had to be somewhere at the start of this raid. But I see him in chat over there.
Fucking Klebby.
God, what a kleb.
Oh my god, I like it. Well, it's 5 o'clock. I mean, we could do this forever.
Oh yeah, they're actually playing the game all day. And not to say the game's shit, because I'm still playing it clearly, and I love the game.
I mean, we're all playing the game right now, literally, so.
Yeah.
Just level my monk.
Yeah, I mean, put stupid stuff in, like these stupid cauldrons, and I'll just sit here and do laps forever. But, I mean, I can't be bothered to farm AP.
Potential customer.
Yeah, I guess we can go ahead and end it here for now, though. So thank you everyone for watching. I'll get this uploaded to YouTube. And we do have a Prot stream next week. So if you're interested in Prot, tune in. We will have a special guest, which I don't know if special guest is announced yet, so I'm not going to announce a special guest. But the special guest tank has killed Jaina, and may or may not be Alliance is your only 2 hints. So I'll see you next week if you're here. And if not, our next ret stream will be in 3 weeks unless something comes up. But have a good day, everybody.